If you love discovering the incredible journeys your favorite foods take before they reach your plate, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It's the best way to join us on these behind-the-scenes adventures that most people never get to see. Today, we're taking you deep inside the world of the Arctic red king crab, and how nearly 900 tons of it make an epic journey from the icy waters off Alaska to the sunny shores of Florida, still fresh enough to be sliced into delicate sushi rolls. It all begins far north, where the Bering Sea's freezing swells hide one of the most valuable catches in the seafood industry. The red king crab is a giant among crustaceans, with spindly legs that can stretch wider than a human arm span and claws powerful enough to crack shells like glass. Fishermen here work through frigid winds and icy decks, hauling up pots that can weigh hundreds of pounds, each one clattering with live crabs. The moment these creatures are on deck, the clock starts ticking. Every minute counts if they're going to arrive in Florida at their peak with the sweet, tender flesh that sushi chefs demand. From the fishing grounds, the crabs are brought to port in Alaska and immediately sorted. The highest grade specimens are chosen for fresh delivery, destined for sushi bars and high-end restaurants thousands of miles away. While some of the catch will take the quicker route by air from Anchorage to the lower 48, the majority of this massive haul is prepared for a cross-country journey on wheels, a logistical marathon through some of the most demanding trucking routes in the United States. The process is both precise and relentless. Each crab is carefully placed into insulated transport crates lined with damp, chilled seaweed that mimics the ocean environment and keeps them moist without drowning them. These crates are then loaded into specialized refrigerated trailers, their interiors kept at a constant temperature just above freezing, cold enough to slow the crab's metabolism, but not so cold that it harms the meat. The refrigeration units hum steadily as drivers check temperature gauges and backup cooling systems, because one mechanical failure on the road could turn a truckload worth hundreds of thousands of dollars into worthless cargo. From the docks in Seattle, where the shipment first touches the mainland, the trucks set off on a 3,000-mile trek to Florida. The route cuts through rain-slicked mountain passes, across endless plains, and down into the humid south. Every hour on the road is calculated into the schedule, with mandatory driver changes to keep the rigs moving almost non-stop. Even fuel stops are timed so the crabs never sit for longer than necessary. At certain rest points, the refrigeration teams run quick checks, inspecting the moisture levels inside the crates and adding fresh chilled seawater sprays to prevent any hint of dryness that could affect texture. The drivers know they're hauling more than just seafood. They're carrying the reputation of the fishermen, the trust of the buyers, and the expectations of chefs who will examine each leg and claw before it ever touches a plate. As the convoys push eastward, they pass through states where the outside temperature swings from near freezing to sweltering heat in the same day. Inside the trailers, though, it's a perfectly controlled microclimate, a rolling fragment of the Arctic sealed inside a layer of metal and insulation. Every turn of the wheels brings them closer to their destination. But the journey is far from easy. Long stretches of interstate are interrupted by traffic snarls, construction detours, and storms that can drench the highways in minutes. Through it all, the refrigeration systems work without pause, compressors kicking in to fight off the southern heat as the rigs roll into the subtropics. The men and women behind the wheel rarely see the product they're carrying, yet they understand the weight of responsibility resting on every mile they drive. By the time the Florida skyline appears on the horizon, each crab will have traveled farther than most people will in a year, surviving a marathon across an entire continent just to end up as a bite-sized masterpiece on a diner's plate. When the convoy finally reaches Florida's distribution hubs, there's no time to celebrate the end of the journey. The moment the trucks back into the loading bays, a small army of handlers is waiting. These workers know that even after 3,000 miles, the freshness clock is still ticking. Every crate is lifted from the trailer with care, almost as if they were carrying glass. The air outside is heavy with the warm, humid scent of the south, a stark contrast to the controlled chill inside the trailers. But here, inside the facility, another layer of refrigeration takes over, ensuring the cold chain remains unbroken. Each crate is unsealed under bright inspection lights, and the first thing the handlers look for is movement. A slight twitch of a leg or the ripple of a claw is enough to signal that the crabs have survived the trek. Even for those destined to be cooked immediately, signs of liveliness are proof of quality. The inspectors examine the shell color, leg condition, and size, removing any that don't meet the strict premium grade standard demanded by the high-end sushi market. In one corner of the facility, a rapid steaming station is already operating. Here, some of the live crabs are cooked immediately, their shells turning from deep burgundy to a brilliant crimson as steam rises around them. They'll be flash-chilled in ice water baths and then broken down into pristine leg sections, wrapped in airtight vacuum packs. These will head straight to sushi chefs who prefer cooked crab for certain rolls and nigiri. But the most prized specimens, the ones that have endured the journey still alive and healthy, are routed to live seafood tanks, massive aquariums of chilled, filtered seawater that mimic the crab's natural environment. From here, the distribution splits into two precise channels. In the first, live crabs are loaded into smaller, specialized trucks that will deliver directly to sushi restaurants across Florida. The second channel sends fresh, never frozen meat via overnight courier to chefs in other states who've already placed orders the moment the shipment left Alaska. For the sushi masters who receive these deliveries, timing is everything. A single day's delay can mean missing the peak dinner service that turns a shipment into a sold-out event. Inside the kitchens, the arrival of Arctic red king crab is almost ceremonial. Chefs gather around the tanks, selecting the crabs with the keen eye of someone who has worked with the species for decades. The legs are carefully detached with precision tools, each cut designed to preserve as much of the sweet, snow-white meat as possible. For sushi applications, the meat might be served raw in ultra-thin sashimi slices, lightly brushed with yuzu or soy, or as the centerpiece of a delicate hand roll wrapped in crisp seaweed. Others will steam or grill the crab lightly, coaxing out the natural sugars in the meat before placing it atop vinegared rice. But the journey isn't just about the flavor. It's about trust. The trust that the fishermen in the Bering Sea handled the crab with care, that the processors in Alaska maintained the highest standards, that the truck drivers kept their refrigeration steady mile after mile, and that the handlers in Florida moved quickly enough to keep the product in its prime. Without that seamless chain of responsibility, the sushi customer might as well be eating an imitation. Every link in the chain knows it, and that's why the process is treated with such precision. As the first plates are prepared, the kitchen fills with a subtle aroma of fresh ocean air, something almost impossible to recreate without truly fresh seafood. The chef's knife glides through the tender meat as if through silk, each slice revealing a pearly sheen that only hours ago was still encased in a shell pulled from icy northern waters. The diners who sit at the bar, watching the preparation, have no idea that their meal has traveled thousands of miles, crossing mountains, plains, and heat waves to reach their plate. They simply taste the sweetness, the gentle brine, the delicate texture, and for a moment, they are transported to a place they've never seen, where waves crash against steel hulls and men in heavy gloves pull up cages from the deep. Back at the trucking depot, the empty trailers are already being cleaned and prepped for the next run. For the drivers, there's little downtime. Another harvest is already scheduled. Another convoy will soon be needed. The red king crab season is short and every load counts. They know that somewhere in Alaska, crews are already setting their pots again, bracing against sleet and spray. While in Florida, chefs are updating menus in anticipation of the next delivery. And so, the cycle continues. From the moment the crab is pulled from the sea to the instant it's served as a piece of sushi, every stage is a race against time. But when it all comes together, the careful catch, the precise refrigeration, the relentless trucking schedule, the meticulous preparation, it creates something rare. A connection between the wild, frozen edge of the Arctic and the warm, bustling dining rooms of the South. A journey of 900 tons, countless miles, and immeasurable skill, all for a single bite that tells the entire story without a single word. In the heart of Miami's upscale dining district, word spreads quickly when a fresh shipment of Arctic red king crab arrives. Top-tier restaurants, some with months-long reservation lists, quietly adjust their menus to feature the prize catch. reservations that were already hard to get become impossible, as seafood connoisseurs rushed to secure a seat, eager to taste crab that only days before roamed the icy seafloor thousands of miles away. In the kitchens, the atmosphere is electric. Sous chefs prep delicate garnishes, while the head chef inspects each crab leg with almost surgical focus, ensuring only the most perfect pieces will be served. The delicate marbling of the meat, the faint translucence that signals peak freshness, is a visual cue as much as a culinary one. Diners who understand the rarity of such a product will often order multiple dishes, savoring it in different preparations to experience its full range of flavors and textures. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the logistics teams are already reviewing the data from the latest run. GPS logs from the trucks are cross-checked with refrigeration temperature reports, making sure there wasn't a single moment when the cargo was outside the safe zone. Any fluctuations are analyzed in detail, even if they were within acceptable limits, because perfection in this chain means catching potential problems before they can affect the product. This meticulous record-keeping is not just for internal quality control. It's also a powerful marketing tool. When a chef or restaurant owner sees proof that their shipment maintained a flawless cold chain from dock to kitchen, it reinforces the premium value of the crab they're about to serve. In a smaller sushi bar far from the luxury strip, the arrival of the crab is just as significant, though the scale is different. Here, the chef is the owner, the buyer, and the marketing department all in one. He receives the delivery himself, inspecting each piece before placing it gently in the walk-in cooler. His regular customers know to watch for subtle cues: a small chalkboard outside the restaurant, a discreet note on the day's menu that signal the king crab has arrived. For them, this is not just food, it's an event. Couples plan date nights around it. Friends call each other to share the news. And within hours, the place is packed. As service begins, each plate that leaves the kitchen carries with it the silent story of the crab's journey. The diners will never see the fishermen in heavy gear pulling traps through snow-lashed winds, nor the dockside crews in Alaska working under halogen floodlights to sort and pack the catch. They will never feel the constant vibration of a refrigerated trailer rumbling across the plains, nor hear the steady hum of the compressors keeping the air inside at precisely 2 degrees Celsius. But they will taste it. They will experience the sweetness, the clean, briny finish, the delicate snap of perfectly cooked leg meat, and they will know, even if they can't explain how, that this is something extraordinary. Back on the road, other shipments are already underway. Some are bound for Texas, others for New York, but a large portion still flows toward Florida, where demand remains insatiable. The drivers who take these routes become specialists in seafood transport, learning to anticipate and mitigate challenges long before they become problems. They know which rest stops have the best access for long rigs, which routes are least likely to suffer from sudden traffic jams, and how to adjust refrigeration units to compensate for changing altitudes and temperatures. For them, each trip is a finely tuned balance of speed, caution, and unwavering attention to detail. The fisheries in Alaska, too, operate like clockwork. Each vessel coordinates with onshore processors to ensure that every crab pulled from the ocean is either shipped live or processed and frozen within hours. This tight turnaround is essential because the product's value is tied directly to its freshness. Over time, the crews have built relationships with the truckers and distributors thousands of miles away, forming a supply chain that feels less like a series of business transactions and more like a team sport where everyone plays their part. In Florida's bustling wholesale seafood markets, the presence of Arctic red king crab is a point of pride. Vendors display the massive legs on beds of crushed ice, drawing in buyers with the sheer spectacle of their size. Even those who aren't in the market for such a high-end product stop to admire them, snapping photos and asking questions. For wholesalers, these moments serve as free advertising. Every picture shared online, every whispered conversation about the crab that came all the way from Alaska fuels the mystique and demand. Some of the crab never sees a restaurant kitchen at all. Wealthy private clients, accustomed to the finest foods, place direct orders for home delivery. These shipments are handled with the same precision as those bound for professional kitchens, arriving in custom insulated boxes complete with temperature monitors and preparation instructions. For these customers, serving Arctic red king crab at a private dinner is as much about the story as it is about the flavor. Guests marvel not only at the taste, but at the idea that this delicacy crossed an entire continent to reach the table. Every participant in this chain understands that what they're moving is more than seafood. It's an experience, a luxury, and a fleeting one at that. The red king crab season is short, and once the quota is filled, the boats return to dock, the gear is stowed, and the supply dries up until the following year. This scarcity is part of the allure. When the last trucks of the season roll into Florida, the atmosphere in the markets and kitchens changes. There's a sense of urgency, a final push to enjoy the last of the fresh catch before it disappears. And then almost as quickly as it began, it's over. The specialized trailers are reassigned, the distribution schedules cleared, and the chefs turn their attention to other ingredients. But the memory of the crab lingers, kept alive by photographs of plated dishes, by reviews from ecstatic diners, and by the quiet satisfaction of everyone who had a hand in delivering a piece of the Arctic to the southernmost tip of the continental United States. And while the next season may still be months away, the machinery of anticipation is already turning, ready to repeat the journey that transforms a creature from the icy depths into one of the most sought-after culinary treasures in the world. When the final stretch of the season arrives, the atmosphere across the entire supply chain shifts into a kind of synchronized urgency. In Alaska, the last fishing vessels push into the Bering Sea before the quotas are met, knowing that every pot they haul could be the last of the year. The air is sharper now, the waves taller, and the sense of finality hangs heavy over each catch. On the docks, processors work with heightened precision, loading the final shipments into the familiar insulated crates. Each one is tagged, scanned, and assigned to its truck with a swiftness born from months of repetition. But this time, every movement carries the awareness that it won't happen again for a long while. In Seattle, where the crabs make their transition from sea to land freight, the truckers gather for the last convoy south. There's certain camaraderie among the drivers now. They've shared the same routes, the same rest stops, and the same long nights across countless miles. These final runs feel almost ceremonial. The rigs are spotless, the refrigeration units double-checked, and every gauge and meter confirmed before departure. They know that any mistake now would mean losing a load that cannot be replaced until next season. And the stakes feel even higher with the year's last deliveries. The drive itself seems different too. Familiar landscapes, the misted forests of the Pacific Northwest, the wide, windswept plains, the sun-baked stretches of the South, are seen with a kind of sharpened attention. The drivers take mental notes, adjusting strategies for the next season even as they complete the current one. They speak less on the CB radio, focused on the hum of the engine and the steady pulse of the refrigeration units. Every stop is quick and calculated, every mile bringing them closer to the end of a journey they've repeated dozens of times, yet never taken for granted. When the final trucks roll into Florida, the reception is different. Wholesale buyers and restaurant owners arrive in person to meet the shipments, knowing this is their last chance for months to secure fresh Arctic red king crab. The unloading is swift, almost frenzied, as each buyer claims their share. Inside the refrigerated warehouses, the air is charged with energy. Staff work in tight formations, transferring the crates to holding tanks or prepping them for immediate delivery. The sound of water pumps, the hiss of ice being poured over freshly cooked crab, and the clipped instructions of supervisors create a symphony of efficiency. In the restaurants, the arrival of these last shipments is treated like an event. Chefs design special menus for the closing days of the season, offering dishes that highlight the crab in its purest form. Some choose to serve it simply steamed, allowing the natural sweetness to stand on its own. Others experiment, pairing the meat with exotic citrus, rare seaweeds, or even smoking it lightly over driftwood to create a flavor profile that guests will remember long after the season ends. For diners, these meals carry an extra sense of occasion. They know they won't be able to experience this again until the next year, and that scarcity makes every bite feel more valuable. The smaller sushi bars, to feel the season's close. The chefs greet regulars by name, often slipping them an extra piece or two of king crab nigiri as a quiet thank you for their loyalty. In some cases, customers who have followed the season from the very beginning will time their final visit to coincide with a last delivery, savoring the knowledge that they are eating the very end of the year's journey. The conversations at the counter often turn to stories of past seasons, favorite preparations, and anticipation for the next opening day. Back at the distribution hubs, the operations teams begin the process of shutting down seasonal lines. Refrigerated trailers are reassigned, the specialized crates cleaned and stored, and the inventory systems adjusted to reflect the end of fresh shipments. There is pride in the work completed, thousands of miles driven without breaking the cold chain, countless crabs delivered in peak condition, and an unbroken reputation for reliability. For many in this network, the off-season is a time for maintenance, training, and preparation, but also for a well-earned rest after months of relentless schedules. In Alaska, the boats return to harbor for the last time. Nets are hung to dry, traps are stacked high on the docks, and the crews disperse to their homes, some heading south for other fisheries, others staying in coastal towns that will grow quiet without the constant buzz of the season. The local economy feels the shift too. Bars and diners that stayed open late to serve fishermen close earlier. Supply stores slow their business, and the waterfront settles into its winter rhythm. But beneath that calm, there is already planning underway for the next season. Gear will be repaired, quotas will be anticipated, and strategies refined for when the crab return. For those who experience the full journey, from the freezing spray of the Bering Sea to the warm, salt-scented air of Florida's coast, the season leaves behind more than just financial gain. It creates a thread that connects people who will never meet. The fisherman pulling traps in near darkness, the driver crossing mountain passes at dawn, the chef plating a dish under soft restaurant lighting, and the diner taking that first bite in silence. It's a chain built on trust, precision, and the shared pursuit of something exceptional. And when the final plate of the final shipment is served, the story comes full circle. A piece of meat, tender and sweet, rests on a mound of vinegared rice. It's eaten in a single bite, gone in seconds, yet carrying within it the weight of thousands of miles, the labor of hundreds of hands, and the fleeting magic of a season that will not come again until the next year. Somewhere far to the north, the icy waters lie still for now, but soon enough, the cycle will begin again. Until then, the memory of the Arctic red king crab and the epic journey that brings it from the edge of the world to a plate in the warm south will live on in every person lucky enough to have been part of it.